And we are back. And now, for this very special episode, we are going to talk about one of my favorite decks. Without further ado, it is a deck built around Linessa Zephyr Mage. Linessa is a card that was released in Future Sight. And if you're familiar with this set, this is also the same set where Tarmogoyf was released. The point about this set, Wizard was like experimenting with things in this set. Like whatever idea you have in mind, throw it in the table and we'll try to fit it into this one set. This is like the set where they've decided, okay, let's put all the type of abilities and concepts that we have in mind, put it in this set, and then maybe in the future we can try and grab one of them and release them in future sets. That's why it's called Future Sight. So what Linessa does, it has two abilities. One is tap for 2 blue and X, and that X is for the casting cost of your target. It says return target creature with converted mana cost X to its owner's hand. But that's not really why I decided to build a deck around Linessa. It's the second ability. It's a Grandeur ability. What it does is discard another card named Linessa Zephyr Mage, and target player returns a creature they control to its owner's hand. Then repeat this process for an artifact or enchantment and a land. And imagine that crazy possibility. Imagine all the potential that this card can do. The only thing that worries me about this card is, one, it's 4 mana. It's 4 to cast, like 1 blue, 3 colorless, for you to be able to cast it. Second is its power and toughness. Its power and toughness is 3/3. And if you're playing it in Modern, you know, there is a card there that exists under the name of Lightning Bolt. So this can be killed very easily. So these are the two things that really worries me when I saw this back in when it was first released. And besides, I don't even remember that I was already playing Modern back then. But still, 4 mana and 3/3 is not really that good. Even to this day, you would still think twice before you actually use this card. However, because of its potential back then when I saw it, I decided that, yeah, sure, let's give it a try. And so I started my research. I started to dig some cards in my house, my friend's house. Oh, by the way, back then, when I decided to build a deck around Linessa, Google is not a thing yet, or at least not in my place. We don't Google things yet. So we literally dig cards to try and see what else can we use to maximize, utilize Linessa. And there are just a few things that comes into mind. The first one is, what's the idea? What's the idea of this deck? So of course you need Boomerang for this one, because you need to bounce any other permanent that comes while we're waiting to reach our 4 mana. So Boomerang allows us to delay our opponent until we get to our 4 mana so we can cast Linessa. And of course, Boomerang's not enough, so we have to add Wipe Away. And Wipe Away also came in, it's not in the same set. It's Time Spiral, but you know the trilogy of sets? I don't remember what it's called, but they all came in that same cycle thing. And Wipe Away is really good because it has Split Second, and I believe this is the first time Split Second was also introduced, which is really, really amazing. I mean, Wipe Away can do lots of amazing things without you knowing it. So this two things, Boomerang and Wipe Away, kind of help me out, balance things out. Most especially if your opponent is kind of aggro, helps you slow them down a little bit. And then here's Vedalken Aethermage, which also came from the same set. It has one job: wizard cycling. So when you do wizard cycling, you have to pay 3 colorless mana, and you can search your library for any wizard card and put it into your hand. And yes, you guessed it right. Linessa is a wizard. So yes, that's one way for us to find Linessa from our deck consistently. So cycle Vedalken Aethermage. But of course, as years gone by, and now that I just updated this deck, Vedalken Aethermage ability to wizard cycling isn't just to search for Linessa anymore. You can also search for Snapcaster, which is really nice. A really good addition. So once you have Linessa, and once you found a few more Linessa, because of Vedalken Aethermage, you can now cast Linessa, and we can now start a party by discarding and using Linessa's ability, which is Grandeur, to discard another Linessa and start returning anything, well, pretty much everything our opponent controls. Oh, by the way, remember this part where it says repeat this process for an artifact, an enchantment, and a land? You have to do it in that way. So the trigger will start with the creature. So you can't just choose, oh, well, I'm going to return a land first. No, you have to start with a creature, and then an artifact, and then an enchantment, and then a land. All right. Now what happens next? Let's say we managed to do that. We managed to cast Linessa. We discard Linessa using its Grandeur ability, and then what's next? Because Linessa is already in the graveyard. Well, another set from another set from that cycle, Planar Chaos, has Evolution Charm. And what it does is it's an instant for 2 mana, 1 green, 1 colorless. It has 3 options. The important one is to return target creature from your graveyard to your hand. So what's going to happen now is you discard Linessa, you cycle, search for another Linessa, discard it again. So you keep your opponent down to 1 or no mana at all, or no lands at all, no creatures at all. And if you run out of Linessa to get from your graveyard, from your library, then that's where we focus on focus on our graveyard. We use Evolution Charm. We take Linessa from the graveyard, put it back into our hand, discard it again, and we keep as far as we can. We keep our opponent down to just 1 land while we have Linessa on board and attacking. And that's basically what the deck is. Other things that I've added here is Reality Acid. When I started building this deck, I used quite some different cards back then. I still remember I was using Seedborn Muse. For this one though, I've made some adjustments. I'm not using any of them anymore. However, I've added Archaeomancer as an added redundancy. So the thing is, when you finally got Linessa out, you've cycled wizard cycling pretty much all of your Linessa from your library to back to your hand, and then you discarded them, and you've done what you were wanting to do. And also, let's say for example, you've already Evolution Charm all your Linessas from your graveyard, and discarded Linessa over and over again. And let's say you've done some Snapcasters to flashback Boomerang or Wipe Away to delay them even further. And then here comes Archaeomancer. to let you do it all over again. So, Archaeomancer's partner is Ghostly Flicker. So we blink Ghostly Flicker. We use Ghostly Flicker. We blink Archaeomancer, or even Reality Acid if it's still there, or if you have it there. Because again, Ghostly Flicker can blink two things. So you blink Reality Acid, you blink Archaeomancer, and boom, you can have Evolution Charm back into your hand, and then cast Evolution Charm again and get Linessa back into your hand and discard Linessa over and over again. That's one option. Or, because this deck doesn't have a win condition, so I've added Narset, Parter of Veils. And then I've added Teferi's Puzzle Box. Yes. So what's going to happen is our opponent pretty much, while they're holding all their cards, because we bounce pretty much all of them back into their hands, and most likely we'll already have 4 mana to do that, so we can cast Teferi's Puzzle Box, and then we can cast Narset, Parter of Veils, and we'll pretty much leave them empty-handed. Now we have some kind of security that Linessa, in any case, will survive, because they're kind of already empty-handed. So that's one win condition that I put in there that I was thinking, maybe we can do that. Maybe. And then the last one is Krosan Tusker. Since Krosan Tusker is reprinted and is now available in Modern, I'd rather take Krosan Tusker as one of my ways to find my lands, my basic lands. Why? Because originally when I first built this deck, it was Rampant Growth. And then since Krosan Tusker is now available, I'd rather use Krosan Tusker. Uncounterable for 3 mana, instant speed, cycle, draws you a card, lets you find a basic land. It's not so bad, right? And then, since it's a creature, you can just use Evolution Charm and take it back to your hand and then cast it. If you have enough mana to cast it, go ahead, cast it. It is now one of your win condition. So that's the second reason why I chose Krosan Tusker instead. Because early part of the game is just a cycle, draw you a card, lets you find your land. But in the latter part of the game, and if you can already cast it, it is now basically one of your win conditions. And then what else do you need to know about this deck? Then I have Cryptic Command and Jace the Mind Sculptor because I have them and I can include them. But Cryptic is most likely the 4 mana bounce, except that Cryptic has a lot more modes than just being a bounce spell. But it can be your 4 mana bounce, can be a tap all creatures your opponent controls as well, and it can also counter spell in case you really need to counter that spell. So at least you have a couple of them available. Now let's talk about the lands. When I built this deck here, I have the worst possible lands available. Castle Vantress, which allows you to scry, which is really good, and Mystic Sanctuary, which has proven itself to be a really good common card for a land. That's pretty much it. I'd prefer to have basic lands, which allows me to search, to use Evolution Charm and Krosan Tusker to find them. I still have a Flood Strand anyway, so I chose to have basic lands instead. Now, why not invest? The truth is, even though that the concept of this deck when I built it has a lot of potential, Linessa is still a 1 bolt away from dying. And when Linessa dies, that's when you start to have a bunch of problems. Because 1, if Linessa is already in the graveyard and you only have one of them, then you can either get Linessa again through cycling, which means you don't have any other Linessa available, or you can get Linessa again from the graveyard, put it back into your hand, but again you don't have another Linessa available. If you don't have a second Linessa at least, then your engine will not go. And if that happens, then that also means your opponent is doing whatever they are trying to do to beat you. So if they're putting up a massive army of creatures to kill you, then yes, they are doing that. Again, the theme of this deck is to prevent your opponent from doing any of that. That's why we're bouncing all of them. However, if you get to survive that, then that's where the fun part begins, because you can use Linessa, you can bounce all of them, and then you win the game. But yeah, this doesn't have any creature removals if you've noticed. Mostly just bounce. Maybe you can consider Reality Acid as a creature removal, but there are a lot of things that you need to have to make this Reality Acid work. However, again, this deck is moving as a whole. It's not like a 1-2 combo card deck that wins you the games. No. You have to make sure that you put them all together and use them all together, and then you win the game. Maybe surprising your opponent on game 1 and to let you win game 1 is one thing. Yes, I can probably go with that. But mostly you will probably lose game 2 or game 3, and then I don't know. However, the reason why I still want this deck and I continue to build this deck and update this deck, well, the reason why I've decided to update this deck is because remember when you first built your own deck, like without net decking, without googling, without just you finding a card, and then a light bulb pops up in your head. Oh wow, I really wanted to build a deck around this card, and then you followed it up with really building a deck around that card, and eventually felt the success of the deck that you built around it. That satisfaction is what keeps me crawling back to this deck, because I could say that it is my original deck, my build, my design, although it's not as successful as the decks that the pros build, but still, it's my baby. It's my design. I'm very proud of it, and that's why I'm sharing this to you guys. So what do you think? Or, you know what, rather than what do you think, if you're going to build this deck, what do you think you'll put in and take out of this current build? Let me know. Write down your comments in the comment section. Let me know, because if there's anything else that you know, like a card, because again, Magic has a bunch of cards and I don't even know all of them. If there's any card that you know that complements to this deck really well, let me know in the comment section. I'll find them, I'll play test with it, I'll see how it goes, and if it works okay, I'll keep it. If it doesn't, I'll let you know why I decided not to include the card, and then we can work with that. And as always, thank you for supporting this channel. If you're looking for other videos to watch, you can check out our other videos. But for now, you know what to do. And see you again on the next episode. Ciao.